Welcome to the Definitive UFO News Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It's the end of the year already, last day of 2025, and this has been a great year in ufology. I don't know how a lot of you look at it. I know we talked, if you were here early on when we started the show at the beginning of the year, we kicked it off with the bang. There was a little, lull in some of the things that were going on. We didn't know how 2025 would turn out, but I think it actually turned out pretty well. We're going to go ahead and take a look back at 2025, see what has happened, what we liked, what we didn't, what we hope for in 2026. But I definitely feel like the needle has definitely been moved this year. I want to know how you guys feel out there. So we're going to be jumping into some stuff here, right here on the Definitive UFO News Show, where truth and transparency matter the most. Where truth and transparency matter the most as we get ready to go into 2026. Let me go ahead and just say, hey, what's up to a couple of the people that are out there in the audience here. I know Kitty Catty Whack is out there. Hey, Kitty Catty Whack, thanks for showing on up. Hey, Flat Sixer, thanks for coming on in here on this New Year's Eve show. End of the year already. 2025 is gone, out of here. Hope you guys have a great 2026. Let's see who else is showing up here. I know Kurt M is out there as well. Hey, Kurt M, thanks for showing on up here on this New Year's Eve show. Also, I think I saw my guy out there. There he is. C-Tech Mateo, my guy. What's up with you, man? Appreciate you coming on out to the show here tonight. Greetings to all from chilly South Florida. Go Miami Hurricanes tonight. Okay. Shout out to the Miami Hurricanes and just wow, chilly in South Florida. Those two things don't seem to go together. But I guess so. Thanks for coming on in, Mateo. Appreciate you, sir. The Jaquetta. Hey, the Jaquetta. Thanks for coming on in. Hello, my friends. Happy New Year. I just got out of the rehab center today, so I'm here for all the woo. And we're going to be going back over the year because I feel like it was an awesome year here in ufology, and we're going to be covering that and a lot more. Also, I want to shout out to Mel WD40, who usually gets us lubed up for the show. Don't anticipate him being here tonight. I know he's doing well, but he ran into a health issue there. And so I definitely want to send healing energies out to Mel WD40. Hopefully you're out there watching and getting it in here on New Year's as we jump into 2026. I know you'll be back soon. I would be shocked if you showed up here tonight, but definitely kick back and be well, get better. Kitty Catty Whack getting started with the awesome super chat. Appreciate you for doing that here. $4.99. Thank you so much. It is awesome that you support the show like that, and it's so much appreciated. Thank you very much. And the Jaquetta. Mr. Rob G is so handsome. What a way to end the year. Thank you very much, the Jaquetta. Thank you. Thank you very much. Looking into getting a lot more healthy this year in 2026. You know, you have your New Year's resolutions. You always set them. And then by the end of the year, hopefully you've achieved some of them, because if not, like, I think I had the same resolution for last year, and I kind of didn't do what I said I was going to do on some of the things. So my goal this year is to make sure that I set reasonable resolutions, right, first off, and then make them achievable, make them attainable, make it fun. You guys will be going on a journey with me on that. It's going to be awesome. And we're gonna have fun with it. We're gonna do some fun things, and I'm gonna open up to you guys in 2026, even more than before. We've always been open with each other. We've always been, straightforward with each other here on this channel, and you guys know that. Very genuine, and we're gonna be sharing a lot more this year. A lot of things planned. We'll go over some of that here shortly. Francis Tremblay, thanks for coming on in, saying, what's up, Happy New Year. Wish you all disclosure. I really hope so. We need it. The world needs it. It's not just us that needs it. The entire world needs disclosure, and definitely hope that's on deck for 2026. There's some promising things I could say that we at least have to look forward to. And we're just going to have fun with that here tonight. We're not going to take anything too serious. Really just going over what happened this year, some of the key points, because as we always say, when you look at things individually, like when they happen sporadically throughout the year, it's like, okay, no big deal. when you look at them all together, then you realize what really happened this year. And there are a lot of things. This year was full of, things that I think definitely moved the needle, got attention of the world, and it sets us up for a great 2026. It's just how I feel about it. All right, so let's not waste any time here. Because, I'm thinking about coming back for the countdown maybe later on tonight. I got to see what's going on. I got New Year's dinner that I'll be getting to right after this show, so we won't be here too long. We're going to have some fun with it, and we're going to get in and out, make some announcements, and keep moving it forward. So let's just jump right on into the show for tonight. All right. Definitive UFO News Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Big things on the horizon for this show, and also for, some of the other things that we're going to announce here tonight. So can't wait to get into it. Pancho Zork. Whoa. Hey, Pancho Zork. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up here, sir. Appreciate you. As we get ready to get into it, Francis Tremblay, 2 new Nazca mummies just revealed. Is getting crazy. And yes, and we're still keeping our eye on that story, because I think, I think what we'll find out is let's open our mind up, to the fact that we discover things all the time, things that we say live here on this planet, brand new species, animals, insects, all sorts of things, especially down in the ocean. The more we go down there, the more we uncover, the more we find. And who's to say that there is not another hominid species that potentially could currently inhabit the planet with us, or in the past, right? You think about when we look at science, and I think it's very arrogant to think that within your own lifetime you can figure out everything else that happened on this planet before you got here. Doesn't make sense to me. That someone can stand on, we know everything about what was here before us. Who would have thought that there were 60-foot lizards walking on this very ground that we're walking on right now? That's crazy. So not out the realm of possibility to have another hominid species. It just, it only makes sense that something like that could be possible based on what we already know about what was here before us, right? So getting into the show, let me go ahead and let me move this out the way. And we're going to take a look at 2025. This year started out with a bang, obviously. We had some of the drone situation, which we'll get into in a moment. But let me go ahead and get through a couple of these slides real quick. We have a phone number here at the Social Dig, which is 856-843-3444, or that's 856-THE-DIGG. If you're outside the United States, you dial 001, then 856-843-3444, or 001-856-THE-DIGG. The line is 24 hours. That line goes directly to me. You can send images of UFO sightings that you've had and some paranormal stuff. Anything weird, you can go ahead and send that right over to me on that number. You can call, leave a message about your experience. You can also call and just say hi, right? Because sometimes it's just the nice thing to do. It's just cool to call and say hi sometimes. And I check it all the time, so anything is appreciated that you send on over. Lock that in your phone for 2026. Lock that in your phone. Also, memberships are available on this channel. We definitely thank, if you've ever seen on this YouTube channel under the screen, you'll see logos with different members who are currently on memberships. It all goes to help make this a better show. We're trying to raise the bar in 2026, raise the production value, the quality content that you're going to get here. And we're always going to continue doing that. So any support is welcome and appreciated as far as that goes. Also, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Consider subscribing today if you haven't already. Tell a friend. We're having great conversations over here at the Social Dig. Sometimes it gets deep, right? But those deep conversations have to happen, I think, in order to get us to where we need to go. So it's always an awesome time here. Tell a friend for sure. Bring them on in as we creep towards 1,000 subscribers. Also, we have a Discord as well, which you can find in the description of our videos. Every video has the link to our Discord, where it's like a 24-hour chat for the community, where you guys can just get in there anytime you want and chat amongst each other. We're going to start doing cool things in there, like watching videos and, just doing cool stuff in there. Trying to figure out some things. If you have any ideas on things you'd like to do in there, definitely let me know. You can hit me on the community tab, or you can call the number that I just gave you a moment ago as we get ready to get into the show. So, 2025 was a groundbreaking year. I'm going to call it groundbreaking. I'm going to go as far as to say it was a groundbreaking year. We've had big years, in the 2020s here. We've had definitely years that moved us forward. When we had our first UFO hearing, that was a year that really moved the needle. When we got Congress to kind of sign get this UAPDA, the UAP Disclosure Act, signed into law. Big moments, right? Corbell occasionally drops videos, big moments, right? Whistleblowers coming out. We've had some that moved the needle, but we had a lot of everything this year. And it didn't look like it was going to really turn out to be that way, but it actually was. So 2025, year of UFOs, we're going to go ahead and start with the obvious. The year started with a bang with the New Jersey drones. We didn't know what they were, and guess what? We still don't know what they are. From November 18th of 2024, so it actually started in the previous year, leading up through the end of January. And if you listen to Ross Coulthard, he'll tell you that these things are actually still going on today. It's listed as New Jersey drones because that's where the focus was. But come to find out, these things were appearing all over the globe, right? We have situations where if you watch any of these earlier shows that we did here on the Social Dig, on the Definitive UFO News Show, and I encourage you to go back and start at January of this year and kind of go forward, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that we are going to actually cover tonight, but you'll be able to enjoy the full shows. So we presented questions, and we actually laid out groundwork to show, for one, why it didn't make sense that these things were adversarial, right? Just going down a checklist. Let's go through the basics. We went through why it didn't make sense that these things were adversarial. We went through why it didn't make sense that they would belong to our own government. We went through why it didn't make sense that these would be government contractors that would be allowed to have these things up there. And then so we came to a conclusion that it really only leaves one other explanation, which we won't say extraterrestrial necessarily because we didn't see anything get out of these, but we can definitely lean into the fact that these things likely weren't man-made, at least some of them. Now, there's going to be some that were explained away as prosaic objects, and I'm going to take you back in time just so you remember how it felt when we actually were going through this. So we're going to jump into the first collage. I put together a collage of videos of some of the things that we encountered at the beginning of this year. So let's go ahead and take a look, kick back, get your popcorn, check out the video, and we'll be back here in a moment.
You're telling me we don't know. You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
That's right.
It's crazy.
That's right.
I mean, it's crazy. That's madness. That's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are.
Sir, the FBI and our Newark field office, along with the state and local partners there, the Bureau is actively investigating the situation you mentioned, just the unexplained sighting of drone activity over that part of New Jersey. We do not attribute that to an individual or a group yet. We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that, of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights, but we're actively investigating. It is concerning.
Is the public at risk? Is public safety at risk? Are we concerned that there are nefarious intentions that could cause either national security or a public safety incident that would put Americans at risk?
There's nothing that is known that would lead me to say that, but we just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
A lot of questions still remain on Capitol Hill about what exactly is going on in our skies with all these drones. Here's what some House lawmakers on the Intelligence Committee said just moments after exiting a 3-hour closed-door briefing.
No, we have no idea who owns these drones. We spent a lot of time in this hearing asking the question in every way imaginable as to whether or not any of these sightings in New Jersey, Connecticut, anywhere they're being cited, are federal government operations. And they are not. We were assured, and we asked this question over and over and over again. They are not federal government operations to sniff radiation, gas, recovery, anything else.
5,000 reported incidents of these lights in the sky that were basically processed by the FBI, CIA, DHS, and other agencies. And they've now determined about 4,900 of them can be explained as, commercial drones, amateur drones, manned aircraft, and the like. They're still tracking down what's going on with those other 100 incidents. But my main point that I took away was I think they should provide more of this information faster to the public, especially if they know that something is a manned aircraft, for instance, providing information to the public about, okay, this is the flight tracker data. This is how you know that this is a civilian aircraft and so forth. It had to do with information that was already unclassified, and they needed to explain to us why they ruled X, Y, or Z reasons out for why those lights in the sky appeared.
So if somebody says to you, look, it's great that we know and feel confident about 4,900 of these, but 100 is not an insignificant number. So why can't we figure this out?
So last night I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working it every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there.
So we pull over, get out of my car, forget about the phone. I'm just like looking at this thing, wondering what the heck it is. Then I said, I should take a picture. I grab my phone, the second it notices I'm out there, it just starts heading south. Grab the picture. The picture looks like a dot. It looks like, at the very most, like a Plan 9 from outer space flying saucer. But when I got a good close look at it, when it was only about 100 feet off the ground, maybe 150 feet off the ground, it looked like a drone on steroids, like literally a drone the size of a garage. So the next morning I called the FAA, I called the FBI, and still to this day, I've not gotten a response from either of them.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but, at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring. These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Joining me now is the mayor of the township of Belleville, New Jersey, whose town had several drone sightings, Mayor Michael Melham. Mayor, thank you so much for your time on this. What is the latest on the situation there in Belleville? Are there still reports of these drone sightings?
Thank you for having me. So absolutely. I mean, all over New Jersey and even Long Island, I'm getting reports from videographers that are stationed right at the water there in Long Island, seeing them come over from what he says is New Jersey. Here in New Jersey, we're about 500 mayors strong. We are still waiting for answers because our residents are still gravely concerned over what's flying just over our homes.
What do you think is going on in the skies?
I mean, it's tough. Every time I see a video, my opinion seems to change. I mean, I've recently been watching and spent some time with the videographer out of Long Island. I mean, he has orbs, these glowing orbs of light on camera that as you watch them right before your eyes, they seem to transform into a mechanical drone. So I've actually watched it myself where these orbs are glowing balls of light, different blinking lights all over the place. And as it gets closer to you, you actually see it transform into a drone.
So those were some of the things that were said reporting. Now, these clips that you've watched covered a period of 2 months where, each day these residents in New Jersey were super concerned about what was right over their heads, right? You had the guy there that talked about seeing a drone initially before he started recording about 100 feet above the ground that he stated was about the size of a 2-car garage, right? And then he saw it go up. He started filming it. It morphed into kind of something else and went away. Now, we know, obviously, that isn't going to be something that is made by any human being on this planet. And it's just amazing that when you think about it, looking back, and I kind of knew that this would happen, that something would happen in the news cycle, which I think that has kind of changed now, and we'll talk more about it. But the news cycle was so, short-lived that anything would be able to take the story away. And I think, I don't know exactly what happened at that time, but I can't remember. At the end of January, something came up where we all of a sudden stopped talking about the drones. I think people were just tired of every day hearing the story about drones and kind of wanted to move on, right? When it could have potentially been, especially when you hear some of these reports, the congressman that sat there and stated that he was out on the beach with officers and they witnessed 50 of these things coming in off the ocean, right? And we've always said that there's no way in the world with the type of satellites that we have, and not just us, but satellites around the world for different countries, that there wouldn't be able to find out the origin of these craft and then the destination. So someone knew, someone still knows, and they never came out and addressed where these things were coming and going from. That's something that you should be concerned about, because it was obviously a moment in time where we couldn't do anything. It showed that we had no ability to do anything about these things in the sky. It was literally a moment in time where the government, the most powerful government in the world, seemed confused and, in my opinion, shook on what they thought these were. Now, as you might remember, this has actually happened in a transition period between two different administrations. So you had an outgoing president at the beginning of this drone situation, and then you had an incoming president that kind of took it over. And this is some of the stuff that was said leading up to the new president coming in. So we're going to go over that. This is what the government had to say during that time.
The drones that are flying around. Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports?
The government.
It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows, and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster. They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment.
Breaking development on all these mysterious drone sightings across the tri-state. The FAA, for the first time, has issued bans on flying unmanned aircraft aircraft across parts of New Jersey due to security concerns. Several areas, including Jersey City, Edison, and Elizabeth, have all been deemed national defense airspace. The restrictions run from now through January 17th. The FAA says pilots who violate the airspace may be intercepted, detained, and interviewed by law enforcement. The agency also warns that the U.S. government may use, quote, deadly force if any drones pose an imminent threat. More to come throughout the morning.
I'm going to give you a report on drones about one day into the administration, because I think it's ridiculous that they're not telling you about what's going on with the drones. That could be us sending drones. I hope that's the case, us doing it and doing research, and maybe they don't want to talk about it from that standpoint. I hope it's not an enemy, but we're going to find out on the 21st, the day after. You have to give me a little time for the inauguration, but shortly thereafter we'll give you a report on it. We'll tell you exactly what it is. They know. And it's very strange that they aren't talking about it. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susan? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out? Immediately. I can't imagine it's an enemy, or there would have been, people would have gotten blown up all over. Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was. They had a lot of them flying over Bedminster, which is interesting.
So the FAA lifted this temporary ban, and now these drones are back. Are you surprised, or were you expecting this?
Oh, good morning, Marky. Look, the simple fact is they're like the Thanksgiving and Christmas guests that never left. The story saying that the story suggesting that there was a decline in the drones is nonsense. You've only got to talk to New Jerseyites and New Yorkers. They say these things never left the skies. And as those mayors are saying, there are still hundreds of them every night over these neighbourhoods. And all they want is answers, because the FBI has basically said it doesn't know what they are. And
so did the ban even help? Did the ban do anything?
No, I don't think so. Okay. I don't think so. And the government's got no answers. It's as simple as that. And the public want answers. And indeed, the new president has promised to deliver one. So let's hold him to that.
There's this video that's been released, Ross, showing the glowing drones hover. We're playing it on the screen right now. Before moving, what do you and others in the UFO intelligence community conclude that these drones are and what they're doing? I get that we're not getting answers from the government, but what do your inside sources think?
Privately, people from government investigative agencies are telling me they have no explanation for these objects. They don't know what they are. And I find that quite incredible, because if you think about the hysteria that happened over the US in February 23 when a Chinese balloon flew across the continent, why is it that the government is so meek and mild now about what literally county mayors are saying is a nightly incursion of hundreds of objects that nobody can explain.
And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Okay, so BS statement, obviously, from the White House press secretary there at the end, because we still don't have any conclusion to what it was, right? So you had an incoming president saying, hey, they know what it is. They should be telling you. I don't know why they're not telling you. You get the FAA coming in putting a ban, if you remember, that went on for about 2 weeks. And then they lifted the ban. And they still never came to a conclusion on what they were. And as Mateo stated in the chat here, it was the collision between the helicopter and the jet in, I think it was in DC, that actually took over the news cycle. So that's kind of what happened, and we ended up moving on from that, right? Think about the implications of if that was an extraterrestrial presence. I've talked about, and I did a video about 5 times when, these entities may have attempted to make contact with us. And I feel like with the anomalous things that happened during that time frame, all the prosaic stuff, let's just put that out the way. Okay. Some of these things were airplanes. Okay. Some of these things were drones. There's still a number of these things that are unidentified and unknown. And if that small number, even as a reporter said earlier, even if out of 4,900, you have 100 that are unexplained, what are those? And then why were they sitting up there every day for a period of 2 months and longer? Seemed like a time potentially when maybe they were trying to make contact with humanity. How else can you look at it, right? But that's how we kicked the year off. Kind of went from 2024, we moved into 2025. Now, here's one of the things that Ross Coulthard ended up saying afterwards, right? So we had all this come out from the government, and on Need to Know, Bryce Zabel and Ross Coulthard had a conversation about how this was handled by the government, and he made a lot of valid points here. So I definitely want to get to that. I'm going to try, I think someone said the audio is doing a little doubling. I'm going to try to fix that as we go. So let me know, whoever put that in the chat, let me know if it fixes itself. I'm going to try a couple things as we play this video. Here we go.
On the drones. Trump winked it on the drones. I think Trump showed cowardice on the drones. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the Trump administration came out with that ridiculously lame White House press secretary, where she talked about how the FAA had authorized drones for research, and the fact that the president of the United States, who has campaigned on the deep state, if you like, would allow himself to be so egregiously snowed by what is blatantly Pentagon disinformation. He needs, and this is a real test of Trump. I mean, essentially, this is the moment when we really see if Trump's all hot air. I mean, I do think that with Donald Trump, you judge him by what he does, not by what he says. And I credit, by the way, Anthony Scaramucci, the mooch, on his USA Today, Rest is Politics US podcast, which I love. So judge Donald Trump on what he does, not what he says. And for me, the big moment, the big test was months and months and months of incursions by drones over military bases, where in some cases airstrips have had to be closed down for several hours, in fact, as much as a day, because of incursions over those bases. It was incumbent on the new administration to basically make a decision about what they were going to tell the public. And Trump had promised. He promised that he was going to ask for an investigation and he was going to get an answer. And frankly, what we've received to date from the White House is, I'm afraid, more of the same. I mean, judge him by what he does. And what he's done, frankly, is come out and parrot the same old tired Pentagon line. And I don't know whether President Trump was knowingly involved in the release of that decision because it came from a female spokeswoman. I hope that it was just a junior decision that was made by his chief of staff and passed on down through the chain for the spokeswoman to release at a press conference. But does Trump really want to be associated with such a disingenuous and completely inadequate answer? Why would the FAA have authorized drones for research purposes when it said on oath in December? It basically, it's either lied or it's committed perjury. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but why? Basically, the FAA testified on oath to the Congress that there was absolutely no suggestion that these were US government or US government authorized drones. There was no authorization for these flights. These were incursions by unknowns. That was the evidence that was given by the FAA. They lied, if that's true. They have lied. Now, and this is the thing that really gets me is I've been taught as a journalist, and I'm sure you were too, when you see that kind of obvious contradiction on the facts, when you see, on the one hand, the FAA has basically said, these are not authorized objects over US sensitive facilities, over US airspace. These are unknown craft. At different times we've been told they may be Iranian, they might be foreign adversaries. Nobody's got an answer. And privately, people I'm talking to are telling me contradictory things. On the one hand, there's kind of a rusted on belt of people who probably don't really know, but who are inclined to accept what's being fed down to them through the grapevine, which is, don't worry, guys, this is us, don't worry, it's all friendly, don't worry about it. And then the guys who I was talking to who really know, who actually have had direct involvement on the ground with these drones in the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, DOD, they had no idea what these drones were. They were telling me, Ross, we do not know what these objects are.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. I see. I'm gonna have to toggle back and forth on this here when we play the videos. Let me know. Thumbs up. Are we back? Are we back? Thumbs up if we're back. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to toggle back and forth. For some reason, it's making me switch between channels here. So basically, what I was saying is with the New Jersey drone situation, as Ross Coulthard said, he talks to people in the background, and these are people who are in these skiffs, right? Who talk off the record, and you would think if they go into these skiffs and they have this clearance that they're in the skiffs at the very least, they should be able to be told, hey, it's ours, or let's not really worry about looking into this too much. It's at least giving us some sort of idea, and that just never happened. So once again, kicking the year off with the drones seemed like that probably, was, I'm going to say, one of the biggest moments of 2025 and a hell of a way to get things started, right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and move into some more stuff here. What happened after this? Right after this, we had Jake Barber come out with the talking about the crash retrievals, right? The egg UFO. The egg UFO, the one everybody makes fun of, and I'm okay with that. Egg jokes, insert your egg jokes here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the video. This is what happened. This was the video that was released on the News Nation exclusive. So they were bringing Jake Barber out, right? And if you didn't pay attention, you would think that Jake Barber was the person that retrieved this particular object. But it was never stated that that was the case. Actually, Jake Barber retrieved something else, right? They didn't show whatever it was he retrieved. He was just coming out as a whistleblower to say, hey, I had firsthand knowledge of these craft, right? And I was working through a contractor, and we had retrieved a lot of just prosaic things, but some of these things that we retrieved were not from this world. And that was basically him coming out saying, hey, I actually moved one of these things. Then Ross Coulthard releases this video, and we're still waiting on who this video is tied to, because I think that there is still a story that hasn't been told here, right? A lot of people laughed at the shape. If you go back and watch the shows that we did on this, we talk about how the egg shape, in this particular shape right here, has been talked about throughout time, right? Even with the Tic Tac, right? If this is flying through the air, this object we're looking at, could you see this as a Tic Tac? Could this be potentially looked at as a Tic Tac? The objects that I took images of, I had a UFO sighting a few years back, had 47 objects, and we talked about this as well. These objects were shaped in similar fashion to this right here. But this is one of the, you know, I think one of the biggest moments as well in 2025, right? I don't know why people walk away from that and not feel that there's something else to that. Like, why would they show, if you're going to show or attempt to hoax a UFO retrieval, why would you choose that particular shape? Why would you choose something that looks like an egg if you're attempting to hoax a UFO video, a UFO retrieval? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense at all. If someone was going to sit up and hoax this, they would make the object look technological, or at least like what you would think a craft would look like, right? Why would it be an egg-shaped object? And then not just this isn't like it's, again, the first time we've seen something like this or heard of something like this. This goes back to, you know, times where you have to ask yourself, walking away from that, is this potentially a UFO? A UFO. Now, I'll go a step further, because these particular type of objects, these spheres, these oblong-shaped objects, these orbs, I don't feel like that these things are like manned objects, right? At the very least, these things are like probes that are being sent around. And we've done a video on this very channel where I've shown you MUFON reports that show objects that look very similar to this in the sky by the hundreds, that have gone through the MUFON vetting process, that have, you know, they put a stamp on it at the end of unknown. They couldn't determine what it was. And these objects look exactly like this. So what do? How do you approach something like that? And you know, I think it's the court of public opinion is going to want to make jokes about it and think this is something that's laughable. But I really feel like this was something that you should be taking at face value, right? And it's up to you how you feel about it, really, at the end of the day. But let me go ahead and. There was a conversation that was had after this. After all the laughing and jokes were done, once again, Ross Coulthart sat down with Bryce Zabel, and he gave more information, because Bryce is like, hey, what's the chain of custody on this video? Like, you know, coming from a reporter's standpoint, like, I have to ask you this question, like, how is, you know, what's the validity of this video that you released, right? And he has something interesting to say about that, and it's kind of cryptic as well. And it goes along with what I feel that there's still more to be said about this video. So don't be surprised if 2026, whoever's connected to this particular video ends up being announced or brought forward by Ross Coulthart as a new whistleblower. And the other important part of that is, as we talked about earlier this year, if this is actual video of an object being retrieved, then that means also this object was being taken to a government contractor. And then the question is, who? And then where? We talked about Plant 42 before. Is this something that was taken to Plant 42, right? Which is on Edwards Air Force Base. We had made a video about that as well. You can jump back and take a look at what we talked about there. But let's see what Ross Coulthard said when questioned by Bryce Zabel about this particular object.
There's, the classic video that there was even a promo from News Nation about. Tell me where there's, the classic what I'm talking about. It's the video night vision that there was even a promo from News Nation about where it's and the egg craft wrapped in something and that kind of thing. What is the provenance? You'd ask the same question of anyone else. So I'm just asking you, what's the provenance of that? Where did that video come from? Is it actually taken from Barber's Craft, or was it taken at a different time? There's just a lot of rumor and misinformation on that one. So let's clear it up right now.
Clearly, I have many other sources inside the Legacy program. Clearly, there are other people talking to me. And clearly, I've been able to procure the video from the retrieval program in a completely separate operation from Jake Barber. Barber did not give me that video, period.
That's was it taken from Barber's Craft, though, I guess is the question. No. So it's if anything, and again, I'd almost have to watch your show again because I think that the initial rush of comment was people going, somebody said, well, by the way, that wasn't even taken, that's not related to it. And they put them together. But
you know what I find? It's funny, you give the UAP community what they want. And they come galloping over the hill like the cavalry going, oh, it's all a CIA psyop. It's all bullshit. Don't trust them. They're all false flags. And then you had other people saying, oh, it's an aerogel balloon. Don't you think if it was an aerogel balloon, the Pentagon would have been out on Monday morning, first thing saying, this is complete bollocks. This is an aerogel balloon.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is they know what we've got. They know what we're sitting on. And they're very nervous about what we're going to do with the rest of what we've got. And they'd better make a decision.
Can you define they? When you say they?
The gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, the people who are sitting on this absurd secret, we're doing them a favor.
So once again, they're sitting on more information, right? And that's where I feel like the other shoe is going to drop on this. A big moment, whether you look at it that way or not, right? Whether you're in the boat of making jokes about it being an egg and you don't think about it any further than that. These are things that you put on, you parking lot these things because it hasn't been disproven at this point. It's laughable. Mork and Mindy, right? It's exactly what we thought it was, right? All these egg jokes, right? But at the end of the day, this likely, based on other historical things that we can point to, this lines up with historical data. This lines up with anomalous videos that we could look at online. This lines up with a lot of different things that have been categorized as unknown. So once again, I think this was a big moment in 2025 as far as UFOs go. I think, if I had to bet on it, if I had to put my chips on it, I would lean more towards this is probably a retrieval, very likely a retrieval just based on historical evidence. And once again, it just doesn't make sense that if you're going to fake a video that you make the object look like an egg, right? Because if it doesn't line up with historical data, then it just looks silly on the face of it, right? And it's something that you immediately kind of throw away. But if you look into the history, if you know the history of past reportings, and even the Tic Tac shaped object, which can, be symmetrical as a Tic Tac, or it could be oblong. These things change shape. We know that. We've had reports of these things morphing and doing all sorts of weird stuff, right? And if you go back to a video that we did here on this channel, I think the video is titled White Spheres in the Sky. This is Social Dig, I think season 2. We covered a lot of cases where, and this is before this egg-shaped video came out. We did a video showing multiple cases of these white oblong-shaped objects being seen in daylight, along with my own sighting. So if you want more information on that, definitely hop in the archive here on the channel, and we have a great video for you to watch that kind of leans into that. It'll show you more data. You may walk away feeling different about it, right? But once again, this is one of the things that happened here in 2025 I think we can lean into. Next up, what do we have? I think if we're going chronologically, I want to say Corbell came out with the new Tic Tac video with Chief Alejandro Wiggins, right? Had been witness to this, and they came out on the news earlier this year, I think somewhere in April, where they showed this video from 2023, where an object that they're saying is a Tic Tac came out of the water, met up with two other objects, and then kind of just zipped off. Now, if you don't remember that story, great. We actually have the video for you. So let's go ahead and jump into that right now.
Was a light I noticed on the horizon, but it looked as if it were surfacing out of the water and going up. They all executed at the same time, leaving. It's not like three of them left and then one was kind of like a little behind them. No, they were all in sync at the same time.
Just a few hours ago, this shocking account from an enlisted crew member aboard the USS Jackson, describing the unexplained incident that he saw himself off the coast of California just last year. The sailor revealing everything to investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell on the Weaponized podcast. Jeremy Corbell is here now. Good to see you in studio for the first time. We've talked to you so many times over the years. You're one of the world's leading experts in UAPs and UFOs. So what did this guy see?
Yeah, well, this is an enlisted Navy officer who saw come out of the water what we call UFO or UAP. So he physically saw it come up out of the water. Then he saw it on radar. And this is one of a number of witnesses. But when I obtained and released this footage with George Knapp, people started talking to us. And he had the courage to come forward, which is no problem. He should be able to talk about this. Came up out of the water, sat up there with three others, and then all shot off in unison, together, synchronized, almost instantaneously. A UAP.
And so what we're looking at right now, this is Department of Defense footage, right?
Yeah, essentially anything. This is filmed by a Navy warship, right? Yeah. So these are our systems that we use to defend the ship. This itself was, when I obtained it with George, we were able to put it out and show, it doesn't really anything with national security. This is called the Sapphire system, but it does show something really unique. It's what's not in the footage. There's no tail, no wing, no propulsion. There's nothing that we can say that is typical or average propulsion. Everybody on the ship knew they were seeing something extraordinary. So obviously people thought it was important to document, and then finally witnesses come forward.
So you put out this footage, and then this sailor that we saw said, I was there, I want to talk about this.
Yeah, so through an admiral who testified in front of Congress about the reality of UFOs, this individual reached out to that admiral, and that admiral knew that I had obtained that footage, so it says, maybe you guys can talk. And so luckily, look, people that are active military, they're allowed to talk about this. They're not talking for the military, they're talking for themselves. And being a direct eyewitness, though, and people that have the courage to do that, that's what Congress wanted. We need more of that, and so hats off to Alex.
So what is it?
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody wants to know. What do you think it is?
So it is a machine that is able to outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform anything that we know of that's been made by technology and terrestrial nations. Now, say what you will about that. I don't know who operates these. Unfortunately, it's not the United States.
How do you know that?
That's a long, how long's your show?
Yeah,
but essentially it's because we are seeing them, filming them, documenting them, and a lot of people have come forward with me to Congress, including whistleblowers. Unfortunately, these are not black projects of the United States. There's no fingerprint of that in our technological evolution.
So could it be China or Russia or North Korea or some other country?
I'd rather these things be from another planet than an adversarial nation, because if it was an adversarial nation, then their ability to weaponize that technology would be unprecedented. Luckily, we don't see a fingerprint for that. So Russia, China, all these nations have been excluded by the Department of Defense as the individuals making this. So that leaves a big question mark, which we're uncomfortable with. Where is this technology from?
Yeah.
Who is operating it? And what's the intent?
And right now, we don't know the answer to that.
Congress is trying to get the answer to that. People have testified that we reverse engineer NHI, non-human technology. They've testified in front of Congress.
Yeah.
David Grush, Commander David Fravor. If it's true, then the way we understand the world is smaller than it actually is.
And this isn't Antarctica we're talking about. This isn't some far-off land. This is right here. I mean,
Right
look
here.
at where we're talking about here. And this is San Diego, Catalina Island, San Clemente Island, obviously Camp Pendleton right there. And this is right in our area.
And this is a pattern of protected areas where things fly with impunity in these restricted airspace. In 2004, the Tic Tac UFO. In 2019, the UFO swarms around 10 Navy warships in this area that I obtained and released with George Knapp. A ton of corroborative visual footage, radar, thermal, IR. This is a pattern, 2004, 2019, and now 2023.
What is it about that area? Did you say it's protected because this is by Camp Pendleton? Is that why?
Well, these are warning areas. Our military is out in this area. It's a restricted area.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of people that live not that far from there that think, okay, so does this mean that aliens ships are flying above our coast? What do we do about this?
This UFO phenomenon has been here for a long time. This is not something new. It's nothing to worry about, but it is something that we need to face head on. And that's what Congress is trying to do, is get people to get past the stigma so we can know and understand what is this technology and who is operating it and what is the intent.
Do you feel like Congress and this current administration is taking this seriously?
They said they were. They said that they're going to be transparent. I'm going to hold them to that. This UFO thing has been the most guarded secret, most compartmentalized secret. Anybody on the inside connected to this knows it's true. The question is, why haven't they told the American public? I am hoping the new administration holds themselves to that standard and tells the truth about UFOs to the American public.
Well, it is amazing, the footage and this concept to think about, and we appreciate you for bringing this to light. And look, we're not stating anything necessarily as fact. We're stating what we know as fact, what we don't know as fact. We're raising questions because it's important to have this conversation. You've been leading it for a long time, and it's great to see you in person for the first time.
Thank you so much.
Jeremy, keep up the good work.
Okay, I will.
Thank you very much. We'll be back. And the Weaponized podcast, people can check this out for themselves. There's a promo for it right there with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. We'll be right back with more news.
Yeah, so that was the Tic Tac video, actually, that came out earlier this year. So this was and if you remember, Chief Alexandra Wiggins, who actually ended up testifying at the UFO hearing back in September, which we'll also kind of get into as well as one of the big moments of this year. Objects coming out of the water, right? So at this point, right, things are ramping up, I feel like, for the year. We're only in April at this point. Jeremy Corbell, who's been dropping bombs, he dropped a couple bombs this year, right? Regardless how you feel about the guy, he definitely, pulls things out of the pocket at the appropriate time. And he came right back, I think, the very next month, and then showed us this video. The UFO in the cloud video, right? That really feels like the movie Nope. And this is kind of, if you go back to the show that we did on this, we did shows, everything I'm showing you, we did shows on this channel. And we actually, these were great shows. So if you want to get like more in-depth information on what it was that we talked about, I recommend going back and watching those shows. Started January, kind of move yourself forward through the year. But we covered these in depth and gave a lot of opinions. You gave your opinions on a lot of these things as they were happening. And this was a spooky moment, right? Because as I've talked about before, when I went to go see Nope, the way that it was promoted through trailers, it was supposed to be, it felt like they were in the trailers promoting it to be just a regular nuts and bolts UFO movie where you had aliens inside a craft and aliens getting out the craft, right? The way that it was promoted. But after watching the movie, you find out, okay, they took a totally different aspect on this, and these craft were alive, right? The craft itself was the alien, right? And when you think about that, as we talked about in earlier shows, there are a lot of reports on these UFOs having sort of a lifelike characteristic to them. The UFOs that I filmed, and I'll redo a show on my UFO sighting here coming up in 2026, because I think it's something we need to keep putting out there, because I have verifiable times where these things have been seen, and I think these are probably one of the most common things that you'll see up there, which also kind of leans back onto the whole Jake Barber, the egg UFO video as well. But we'll talk about that more in 2026. But this right here, you had to wonder where Jordan Peele got the idea to take his movie in that direction. UFOs hiding in the clouds, right? UFOs just creating clouds, right? As you remember in the movie, they had the stationary cloud. All the other clouds are moving. They had the stationary cloud, which was covering up the UFO in this case, right? And then Jeremy Corbell drops this video, and it just really feels like that's what they were leaning into. So I have the video that Jeremy Corbell released on this, and watch the fluidity of this, how this object moves through the cloud, right? Reminds me of Nope, 100%. But we'll go ahead and take a look at this. This is what Jeremy Corbell released 1 month after bringing out the new Tic Tac video. So let's take a look at it. This is the raw video that he released on Weaponized. And then I have another video that'll show a comparison as well. So you see it moving through the clouds. Now this could be a disc-shaped object. It could be a sphere. You see it's kind of wobbly, so it could be a sphere. But that is creepy, right? Like, it's a cloudy day out here right now in California. It's actually raining. Imagine something like that moving through the cloud system right above your head, right? So I think that's going to play again. I'm going to show you, I did a comparison where I put it next to the movie Nope. So let's take a look at that real quick here. That's Corbell. Then we'll get the Nope video here playing next. So very, very similar. And it's one of those, we just call that art imitating life in this case, because if you have an actual video of this being a real thing, right? If you have an actual video of this looking exactly like it did in the movie, that's what, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, where did he get the how would he know to put together a scene that also depicted a video of showing an actual UFO moving through the clouds? Did he see this? Did someone show him the video during the making of the movie? This happened back in 2020 initially. So did he have advisors on his movie as well, as we know Steven Spielberg did? Is this where he got the idea from, right? And you have to ask yourself that, because that movie was so much of a left turn in the perspective of what the UFO presence is or could be, that, it would lead into he potentially had someone that talked to him about that. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Something that happened again this year, or at least was brought out this year, right? So just more UFO evidence brought out this year that you have to think about, especially if you're just coming into the field. You're not, sure about what's going on. You just heard UFOs might be real. Take a look at the stuff just from 2025 that have been released. And that's what we're going over here today. So one of the other things that happened this year that I thought was weird, and it was NASA, right? So we know NASA's, you can make up whatever you want for the acronym, never actually sees anything, never actually space aliens, whatever you want to say about NASA, right? They came out earlier this year and they announced signs of potential ancient microbial life on Mars. That was pretty big. I mean, we figured that, right? Because of they've always talked about, it looks like ancient water flows and all different types of things that led them to believe that the planet Mars was once Earth-like. So we've always been under that idea that Mars was once like Earth. And with that being said, likely had life on it, right? We've already been there. But for NASA to step out and make an announcement, this was over this summer, I think it was in like June or July, where they came out and made this statement. They held a press conference, came out in front of the world, and then finally just put it on record that the things that they're seeing are definitely showing signs of ancient microbial life. Now, if there's ancient microbial life, there was likely other forms of life as well, right? And I'm one of those people that feel like, with Mars being so close to Earth, and with it being once upon a time a planet that was Earth-like, and if there was microbial life, there potentially could have been other life, right? Now, not necessarily quote-unquote alien life, but maybe human life, right? Maybe that's where we came from, right? When you talk about some of the origin stories of human beings showing up on Earth, and this is definitely after the dinosaurs, and in that timeline that maybe we left from there and we came here, dying planet. We moved right to the next planet over because it was essentially, habitable as far as our type of life goes. It was in that perfect Goldilocks zone. And so it make total sense. If we had a planet right next to Earth right now that was, habitable, we would be shooting to go there right now. If the next planet over had atmosphere, had water, and all the things that we need to sustain life, currently in the space age that we're in right now, we would be trying to go there. So at some point in Mars past, it's a lot of people feel like we were there and then we just moved to the next planet over. It would make sense. It wouldn't take a lot to do that. Right now, we could go to Mars if we wanted to, right? If it was habitable, then it would be a trip worth making, and it's doable, right, with the technology that we currently have. So you have to look at that. So I thought it was pretty big that NASA actually stepped out and finally just put it on record that what they're seeing is likely signs of ancient microbial life. So that was a big moment in 2025. You had to ask yourself, like with everything else that we talked about that had happened earlier in the year, you know, is NASA coming out in this moment tied to anything else that happened this year, right? Do they see that we're on a path towards, you know, uncovering and kind of bringing out the fact that extraterrestrial life is here? So now they're open to talking about life on the next planet over, right? It's kind of what it feels like. And NASA, is secretive as they are, and not, you know, they consider themselves transparent. I say they're translucent at best when it comes to bringing data to us. I think they probably have found, you know, evidence of life on Mars a long time ago, right? You would have to think, but they're now bringing it to the table this year. And you had to ask yourself why, right? Next up, September of this year, we had the UFO hearing, UAP hearing. This one was pretty awesome, right? You had George Knapp there, the legend George Knapp. And I think, you know, as we talked about when this happened, that it was epic for him to be part of this panel, just from the perspective of he's talked to a lot of the people that have, you know, been directly involved with a lot of stuff. You want to go back to Bob Lazar, which is kind of for him where it all started in John Lear, right? And to have a historian there, someone who has talked to all these different people, who is able to give the right sort of information in these hearings and make sure that, you know, the right information was put on record, because as we saw in a lot of these other hearings, sometimes Congress members don't really know what questions to ask. But George Knapp made it a point to put all the appropriate information on record. So even if they didn't ask the right question, he made sure to lay out the information. So it was awesome that he was there. You had Chief Alexander Wiggins, the gentleman to the left of, from where we're looking, to the left of George Knapp. You had Mr. Nusatelli, I think, is on the far left. Don't remember the other two gentlemen over there, but this was just with George Knapp alone. His information that he brought to the table, I think, made this hearing very important. And he gave names. He gave them a good idea of what direction to be looking in, right? Because he's not bound by NDAs. So he was able to really just tell them and direct them to where he thought they needed to be. So I thought that was awesome that they had him on that panel. Here's some of the things that they talked about during that hearing. I only picked a couple points. Obviously, this was a two-hour hearing and a lot of good points, but this is some of what they talked about during this hearing as we look back to September of this year, September 9th, 2025.
Nusatelli. When you heard the testimony of the testimony of Mr. Knapp, these missiles were shut down or turned on in Russia. Does that remind you, when you hear these stories, it's got to remind you of the event that happened on your base?
Absolutely. There are many accounts of incursions of this type taking place. I believe in the 60s we had a similar incursion in New England, and same thing happened. There were these objects coming over the base at low altitude, 200 feet over the base security police, and they were scrambling fighters, and then the objects would just fly off, and that went on for weeks. So the historical record has laid out that there's a pattern, that our installations are visited by these craft. You know, they come in and do whatever they're doing, and then they leave. And we don't know how to respond. We don't know how to protect the installation. So That's why we're here.
When you first heard, and we're having to report on these incidents that were being witnessed by other individuals, did you believe them? Did you yourself believe it would be true until you saw it?
Yeah, these are people I've worked with for years, deployed with. I was in some of the weddings. These are people that I worked with every day of my life. Usually when the events were occurring, we were all together. There'd be 40, 60, 100 people on duty during these encounters.
Really?
Yeah.
All seeing it at the same time?
Yes, these encounters were playing out while we were on duty, and we were responding and investigating in real time as they occurred.
And as you said, the importance of your operation was highly important because they said it's the most important in 25 years. The research that you were conducting.
For that particular launch, we had 500 Air Force police officers guarding the launch. 500 people. It was that critical.
Wow.
But had this thing showed up, we wouldn't have been able to do anything to prevent it showing up.
Real quickly, can you just re-describe size and whether or not you heard anything? It was, how big wise?
The two square objects were at least as large as a football field. The second encounter, they think it was much larger than a football field. We're talking like flying buildings. The object I saw was about 30 feet in diameter.
And to confirm, you were not the only person that saw this?
Correct.
I think I was also told that there was also reports of this in a police blotter in the area. Can you confirm that?
Yes, that's the documentation that I maintained from the original event and turned into Aero and the FBI.
Okay. Do you have any more, Burleson?
No, Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate to the American people that if you're frustrated, so are we. We're extremely frustrated. We've been, the 2-3 years, I can only imagine how frustrated Mr. Knapp is or Danny Sheehan is, and the amount of time that you guys have poured into this to try to get answers. Masson is back there. He's been pouring to try to get answers into this. I hope that you all see that we're committed to this. And we're going to be scrappy about it. We may not have the direct authority, but I can assure you Representative Luna is about as scrappy as it gets. I wouldn't want to scrap with her. But that being said, I think that if the American people want to see answers, we need to action. We've had the hearings. It's time to take action. It's time that we pass Tim Burchett's Whistleblower Act. It's time that we pass the UAP Disclosure Act. And I think that we've had a lot of talk about this. It's time for action.
Thank you, Burleson.
So one of the awesome statements made by Rep. Burleson there, it's time for action. And what is that action? I feel like, we've talked about this as well. When this hearing happened, what are the next steps? We actually, even before the hearing, went into it feeling like, okay, is this going to be something that moves the needle? So as we talked about earlier, the fact George Knapp was there to be able to put a lot of historical information on record and then also to kind of direct them to where they should be looking at, right? Because, we're screaming from home like, oh, you should have asked this question or this information should have been brought up. George Knapp handled that, I think, pretty effectively. If he's never in front of Congress again, I think he, utilized that opportunity to kind of put us where we need to be, or at least put them where they need to be as far as what their focus should be. A lot of great testimony at that hearing. And once again, we did a show on this. I recommend going back and watching that show. It was awesome. We covered a lot more of what was said during that hearing as well. And just another awesome moment in 2025, another big moment that I think helped move the needle. And the question being, what's next? Hopefully, the next step is going to these government contractors. Plant 42, once again, on Edwards Air Force Base. A lot of people feel like this is where all the crash retrievals are being taken to, where any reverse engineering activity is being done is on Plant 42. And here in 2026, we plan on going to the perimeter and doing some filming out there at Plant 42. So make sure you stick around for that. That's something to look forward to next year. And I think that's the next step, right? A lot of the talking, most of the talking has been done. I think a lot of the groundwork has been laid as far as, what we're going to get out of these hearings. NDAs are always going to be the thing that limit what can be said. But I think we're already at a point to where, the people who have stepped forward have let us know and let Congress know behind in these skiffs where these things are. So 2026, hopefully we're knocking on doors and, some sort of law gets put in place where we can actually go in there and see what's going on, or at least Congress go in there and see what's going on, right? Hopefully that's what we're looking forward to in 2026. And to cap the year off, the last big thing that happened, and regardless on where you fall on this, and actually, before we do that, I think there was, I think we had one more piece in relation to that hearing. Yeah, there was this video that Rep. Burleson released that he said was given to him somehow, some way, and he made it a point to release this video during that hearing, which was another big moment. It was the video of the Hellfire missile, which is being, which is owned by our government, being fired on a UFO. And I think this video says so much as a few things, right? So we'll play the video first. You'll see the Hellfire missile being shot on this UFO, and then we'll talk about it briefly here. Let's take a look.
Takes such great courage to come forward, and we acknowledge that, and I hope that you see that we are taking that seriously. Matthew Brown in the audience, he courageously stepped forward and was also as a witness. Very thankful. I encourage everybody to look and seek his testimony. He courageously stepped forward and was as a witness. I encourage everybody to look and seek his testimony. I want to thank the people that came in our first hearing: Ryan Graves, David Grush, David Fravor. And in our second hearing, Admiral Gallaudet, Lou Elizondo, and Mr. Gold. And the many others that have come forward. We hear you, and it's time that we, enough is enough. It's time that we take action. Look, I'm not jumped to the conclusion that I believe that there are, aliens coming from another planet. But I'm open to that. And I think that it's our responsibility, especially when we're seeing that we have a government that is actively blocking information from us. Just last night, I tried to get an amendment onto the National Defense Authorization Act that fit in the germaneness of that bill to have UAP disclosure. And conveniently, it was named non-germane, mostly deemed by staff, not even an elected official. This is the kind of stuff that we repeatedly see. Last year, we were blocked by someone in House administration from being able to receive a full briefing from Arrow. So not an elected official, but someone in staff blocked us. And I've had it. Enough is enough. I want to cue up a video that I've been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe. This was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. That you cannot see that drone, and so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does. This is when it zoomed out, so you can still see it traveling. So Mr. Knapp, have you heard about, events like this occurring? And what information might you have?
I have heard about events like this. I have heard about this event. Jeremy Corbell and I talked about it in one of our episodes a while back. We did not have the video, though. There are servers where there's a whole bank of these kind of videos that Congress has not been allowed to see, that the public hasn't been allowed to see. Occasionally, some of that stuff gets out in the wild, and it comes our way. It should be going to you. The public should be seeing this stuff. And why you're not allowed to, I don't know. But that's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO and just bounced right off. And it kept going.
It kept going, and it looks like the debris was taken with it.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
So
So once again, Hellfire missile being shot on a UFO, which we talked about. We did a show on it. Once again, something you could definitely go back and watch it. I recommend you do, because you're not getting full context here. We're just doing year in review. But those episodes, we go really in depth and really break it down. But just to kind of, give the perspective on that, it's awesome, for one. Why, once again, would the government come out and show something like that? Because it shows a direct interaction between the United States government and whatever these things are. It showed, for two, that we could fire on these things and they just keep going. A Hellfire missile couldn't even do anything to it, right? Continued on its travel, right? So I think it showed a few important things. And one of the other things that a lot of people didn't talk about, which we also cover, is it shows a direct conflict between whatever those things are and then the United States government. So you have to ask yourself, in that moment, did this object do something prior to the film that we see here that required them to fire a Hellfire missile on it? Did it do something first where they felt like they needed to fire on this thing, right? Because we know historically there have been interactions between, in the early days of ufology, there have been situations where pilots were scrambled to meet up with one of these objects, and in some cases they fire on these things. We had Tom DeLonge talk about a time where in Italy these objects were coming out of the water, firing on houses on a hill in Italy. They were catching on fire. He said they looked out into the ocean, saw these UFOs essentially, or USOs, coming in and out of the water. The military there takes a civilian helicopter out over the water to kind of get a closer look at what these things are. And he mentions in that moment that one of these objects came out of the water, shot the helicopter, and then went back down into the water. And has there been an ongoing conflict between human beings and whatever these things are? I think the video that we just saw, and it's, once again, why would they release this? Because it leads to so many other questions and some things you could put a stamp on, which is an obvious conflict. And why are we firing on the thing? Did it do something first? Right? You have to ask yourself. So is there an ongoing conflict between these things and human beings, or at least the United States government or governments around the world, right? So I think it's something that we could take to the bank as another huge moment, having that film being released. This was a surprise. We didn't expect any of this, right? The hearing itself was good. Once again, George Knapp was there to lay it all down. But this video was pretty awesome to come from the side of the government. It wasn't a Corbell release. It wasn't, some whistleblower came out and brought this video forward and needed to be validated. This came from the side of the government. And then once again, when you look at all the things that have happened, starting at the beginning of this year with the drones, the crash retrieval videos, the new Tic Tac videos, the UFO in the clouds, NASA for some reason coming forward and almost, validating life on another planet, leading into showing this Hellfire missile. And then during this whole time that this is going on, the hearing and the releasing of the Hellfire missile, we're going through the whole Three-Eye Atlas thing, which, at this point, obviously everyone says was a comet, right? This was another big moment. Whether you fall on the side of, 100% comet or maybe alien tech based on all the weird anomalies. I think Avi Loeb listed at least 12 anomalies that had to do with Three-Eye Atlas. And if you read his Medium articles to this day, he's still pointing out things that don't make sense about this object, this Three-Eye Atlas, right? He says there's a slight possibility that's alien tech. I think on his Avi scale, he dropped it down to like a 2 or maybe a 1, but he's still pointing out things that just don't make sense about the object, right? And then NASA brought forward, as we know, the blurry image of it passing Mars, even though it's a $40 million camera on the Mars orbiter, on the high-rise orbiter. And we were able to get images like this, which you're seeing on screen right now. This was taken from a $4,000 camera from someone's backyard right here on Earth when the object was over 170 million miles away. This is the resolution that we got after all the stacking that they do. And NASA couldn't bring forward anything at 30 million miles, $40 million camera, just a cloudy ball of gas and very low resolution image, right? So you have to ask yourself, is there something more to the Three-Eye Atlas thing? I don't know. Here's the thing with that. When we talk about objects traveling through space, we know that there are things that are currently here in our skies, as we looked at throughout the show tonight. And we know that they're coming in. They're coming in from space. Once again, Kevin Day from the Nimitz talked about looking at his radar, seeing things coming from 80,000 feet, which is the cap for the radar. It doesn't see any higher. So essentially, the objects he's talking about are coming in from space, coming down into the atmosphere, and then dropping to the surface of the ocean in less than a second, right? So there's no way in the world that NASA is not seeing things that are coming in from space. They have to, right? They have to. They have things looking down at the Earth all the time, right? They historically have been known for turning off the cameras on the International Space Station. All these things that they're trying to cover up, and it's the reason why we can still talk about Three-Eye Atlas, because they have not explained away the anomalies. For one, they brought to the table a very BS image, if you ask me. They have the opportunity to do more, and they're not. So is it possible that things that fly through space are not always comets, right? And I think that was Avi Loeb's whole gist of what he's trying to say, is that you can't assume just because something's flying through space and it looks like a comet that it is a comet, especially when we have craft going out into interstellar space like Voyager 1, Voyager 2, been traveling away from Earth for the last 50 years, still traveling. And, for some other civilization out there that ends up seeing Voyager 1 flying through their sky, are they to assume that that's a comet? Or is it crazy to just immediately assume that everything about everything that flies, that's flying through space, right? So I think that was a big moment, because at the very least, it garnered the attention of the world for a period of time, where at least the questions were being asked, and it was being entertained, right, on a national, as far as news goes, national, global level. They were talking about it every day. And I think it at least sparked curiosity for a lot of people, right? And it timed right along with the documentary that came out here in the last month or so, Age of Disclosure, which I think put a real nice cap on the year. You had a lot of different government officials, pretty much stick to the official side of this. And you had vetted individuals there, credentialed individuals. They were able to talk to these legacy programs, the knowledge of, these compartmentalized things that are going on within the government, the roadblocks that they've run into, a lot of the meat and potatoes as far as government goes, right? And kind of, I think, really put the cherry on top for the year. Now, where does that lead us? And I recommend, if you haven't seen Age of Disclosure, definitely go see it, especially if you're new to the subject. I think it lays out a pretty, succinct, basic groundwork for your, starter kit, essentially, into the subject and to kind of see what's going on. And you kind of branch out from there. So what does 2026 bring us? What can we expect going into 2026? Well, a couple things. We talked about the Disclosure Day movie. Steven Spielberg released a trailer recently, which we played on, I think, the last episode we did here, which, again, is another good watch. You should go back and check it out. But the another thing that came up on the radar, which we briefly talked about, was James Fox in The Moment of Contact. So he actually had gone back out to Virginia. If you're familiar with the Moment of Contact documentary, there was a alien being that these three young ladies came across in Virginia, Brazil, in the middle of their community. They walked through this small little field area, looked over to the left, and 10 feet away, crouched by a fence, was this extraterrestrial being. Crouched down. It was it had this sulfur smell, is what they stated. They got scared, ran off, brought their mom back. When they came back, the thing was gone. Apparently, a local policeman ended up coming across it, him and his partner. He went to capture it. He caught it. It scratched him. And apparently some bacteria from the thing got into the cut, and he ended up passing away like a few days later. But James Fox goes back out to Brazil in this last year and talks to a doctor, the doctor that was at the hospital that they brought the bean into. So the bean, when they caught it, they took it to this hospital. They put it in a bed, according to what this doctor is stating. And he actually cared for this being, performed like a surgery where they stated they did something to release like the pressure on the brain, or I guess if this thing had a brain, but they did an operation where they kind of drilled to release the pressure inside of this thing's head. Stated that it telepathically sort of communicated. This is what the doctor is saying. Telepathically communicated with him in the moment. And then the military comes in, takes the being to wherever they took it to. And, the guy is on camera crying and seems pretty emotional about it. And, I think this is, from what I'm seeing here, this is something that he intends on releasing. Maybe, I don't know if it's a re-release of Moment of Contact with this new information added, or if he's doing a separate project where he kind of covers just this particular experience separate from the film. But I think that's something to look at, something to look forward to in 2026, because if you can take that at face value, then you have a person that had direct hands-on with an extraterrestrial being, if that's to be believed. So there's more to come with that. I thought that was pretty awesome. When I checked it out, you can go see this video over on Jesse Michael's channel. There's like a 15-minute video where he kind of briefly talks about this, and they interview the doctor. And so it's definitely a good watch. I recommend that you guys go check that out. But that might be what we're looking forward in 2026. Also, we know, once again, we have the Disclosure Day movie coming in June of next year with film by Steven Spielberg. And as far as this goes, like I said, the last episode we did on this channel, we talked specifically about this. So I recommend going back to watch it. But just the gist of it is, Steven Spielberg having his finger on the pulse of the subject by, with the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie. And we know based on that movie that he had advisors, Jacques Vallée, J. Allen Hynek, amongst probably other people, that allowed him to get the story right. So even though you watch this movie 50 years later, a lot of the things that happen in the movie, you can line up with what experiencers report today, up to this very moment. Orbs, all these different things that we cover on the last show. So I recommend you guys go watch that. It's a really good watch. Our coverage of the Disclosure Day trailer and some of the nuggets that we saw in the trailer that kind of tied to the whole, to a lot of things that we talk about in this community. So once again, great watch, something to look forward into 2026. And then hopefully a hearing. Like, we don't know what's going on there. Hopefully we get another hearing. And then it's just open to who knows what. But I think based on the year that we've had here in 2025, and how it turned out, how it started with the bang, it seemed kind of slow during the middle of the year, but kind of ramped up. I think we had a satisfying 2025 that really moved the needle here on this subject. And really, I think a lot of eyes were open this year as well, thanks to the drone situation that had just the average person looking up at the sky and asking questions, and also the Disclosure Day, the Age of Disclosure film, the 3-Eye Atlas was another thing that had just the average person looking up and asking questions. And I think that's where we need to be. So the stage is set as far as attention goes. We have a lot of attention on what's going on. And I hope we can, I hope we have things that happen aside from just these two films that help bring this home. Because as we talk about, for something that needs to be game changing for humanity, it needs to be a moment where everyone's attention is on this one thing. And the benefit of having a movie, a big budget movie like Disclosure Day, means that there's millions of dollars behind promotion. So this is going to be promoted in places where people don't probably talk about UFOs all the time. So if it's done right, and if he has reached out to advisors like he did in Close Encounters, and this is really the blueprint, hopefully, for what we need to do to have an actual Disclosure Day, then I think we're really setting ourselves up for a wild 2026. I really think so. So, with that being said, we definitely want to go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. 2025, year of UFOs, turned out to be an awesome year. When you look at the totality of everything that took place and you look at it, you put it on one board, there's a lot of great things. And we didn't even talk about the mummies, right? The Peru mummies, that there's still things going on. They're still not sure about that 100%. Something that a lot of people thought was a hoax. Some people some scientists have come to the conclusion that these things are real, whatever they are, and not saying that they're alien, but they potentially could have been some ancient thing that lived here on Earth. So that story is still ongoing. Maybe that picks up as well. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But with that being said, guys, few announcements here. Obviously, we're still on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Consider being a subscriber today. If you're not a subscriber, we would love to have you come aboard. We're going to have a lot of awesome shows here and a lot of things we're going to be doing here in 2026 This is going to be the definitive place to come and talk about UFOs right here on this channel as we search for truth and transparency, which is key. It's number one, and is what what makes me do what I do here is the wanting to get to the truth and transparency part of this. So that, and also the positive progression in humanity, which is what this channel is built on and based on. Memberships are available, guys, so you can go ahead, click the link in the description. It definitely goes to helping this show, the production value. As you have seen, we've raised the bar on our presentation, and we're just going to continue to do that to make this the premier place to come and talk about this phenomena, this wild and evolving situation that we call the phenomena. With that being said as well, we got the social Discord. As I said earlier, it's going to be a place where you can come and have conversations 24/7, right? Where you can just hop in the Discord. You'll find other people from this community there ready to have a conversation. And we'll be picking up and doing a lot of things there in 2026 as well. Also, we have the phone number once again, so you can put this in your phone, which is 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIGG. If you're outside the United States, that's 001-856-843-3444 or 001-856-THE-DIGG. I definitely want to wish everybody a happy new year, 2026, from right here at the Social Dig and your host, Mr. Rob G. It's been a fantastic 2025. I want to thank everybody who has come along for the ride and who has helped, being supportive of this channel as we go ahead and continue to grow. I'm going to be doing some promotions for this channel, so I'm going to do some advertising. So I think that might help get our numbers up here, get us over 1,000. Going to spend some of that good money and promote this channel on YouTube. So you might see some ads pop up for this channel. We're going to do what we can. We're going to try to get, as much as we can to get this conversation out there as well. And also, for those who, have heard, so we no longer do the after hours show over on Spaced Out Radio. But here in 2026, we will be bringing the after hours radio show back right here to the Social Dig. So the after hours radio show with Mr. Rob G coming back to this channel right here on the Social Dig, brand new episodes. We're going to change the format a little bit. We still are going to do the radio format though. And we are currently kind of looking around at some digital radio stations right now that we'll kind of, relaunch on. But the after hours radio show coming back right here on the Social Dig. So that is what I wanted to let you guys know. And I definitely want you guys to be safe out there. Have a fantastic new year, safe new year. Stay in if you can. And depending on how things fall, I may try to hop in and do a countdown, or I may be a little off the wobbly pops, as Bomber would say. That's what they say up in Canada, wobbly pops, which is having a drink or two. So if I'm inebriated, then I may or may not be online. But definitely want to wish you guys a happy 2026. You guys got to take care of each other. And I want to go ahead and make sure that we thank everyone who has donated to the show tonight. Kitty Cattywhack, we do appreciate your support right here on the show. As always, you're very awesome and totally appreciate you coming over to show your love. Also, my guy, Mateo C-Tech, which if you remember, if you've been here for a while, Mateo was on this channel, my right-hand man. And hopefully we'll get Mateo on here to talk some UFOs because I love his perspective on things and appreciate your support here. Saying Happy New Year, Rob, and all great research and great shows throughout the year. Rob, looking forward to disclosure in 2026. And, definitely that's why we do this, Mateo. And hopefully we get you on here to have some great conversations here going forward. We're going to be doing big stuff here, right here on the Definitive UFO News Show. Also, later on, we'll be doing After Hours Radio Show here, along with some other things, some surprises, right? So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to say farewell for now to everyone here. Go out and have some fun. Like I said, take care of each other, take care of yourself, and I'll be posting a new show here soon. And have a great rest of your night, guys. Take care. We're out of here.